Greetings, this is Paul, coming to you live in a pre-recorded way, talking about A Course in Miracles, and today I'm going to talk about fear. What is the cause of fear? How can you be not afraid? How can you get past fear when you're feeling afraid and anxious and doubtful? How do you get to where you don't feel that way and you don't have fear? Fear is just such a paralyzing force in so many people's lives. And talking from experience, when you are living in a state of fear, it puts limits on your entire life and stops you from doing things and greatly narrows down what you will allow into your life or what you'll allow yourself to do. It becomes obsessive as a form of control and trying to hold on so tightly to a sense of safety that becomes very small and very constricted. And I've seen how people who have strong anxiety and fear, which was me, pretty much stop having a life, and all kinds of things come to a stop because of fearful perceptions and just the sense of danger and anxiety and trying to avoid threats and trying to get away from things that seem harmful. And it's a very disempowered state. It's a state of feeling like there's nothing you can do, and that things are happening outside your control, against your will, things that you can't prevent, and things that you don't have any confidence to dismiss or go up against, or to have enough of a sense of self-respect or self-love or certainty enough to be able to sort of stand your ground, or to not allow it to sort of define for you what you will or won't do. I've struggled with fears and anxieties all my life, and especially in teenage years, became so anxious and afraid and withdrawn from society, and I was painfully shy. Was diagnosed with social anxiety disorder, and had big periods of times where I didn't have a job because I was too anxious, and it was just nightmarish and just hellish to live in such a way that you don't have a life, and you're just constantly living in fear, afraid of some kind of punishment, afraid of the way in which suffering is going to come. And it is just horrible when you're in a state of fear. You feel so lost and so weak and so disempowered and so incapable, and it just steals away your life. But over time, because I've encountered it so much, I guess, I've had to learn what it is, how it functions, what it's trying to do, why it's even there. And A Course in Miracles has really helped tremendously in clarifying this and helping me to find a way to tackle it when it comes up, because it still does come up from time to time, and Still have to fight with it and find a way to get back to a sense of safety. So when you're afraid, you don't think that there is any invalidity to the fear. You listen to the fear. You believe what it says. You think it's true. You even think it's protecting you. And this has led to the general idea that fear is part of your normal makeup and you're supposed to rely on your fear to keep you safe. And that your body somehow has like hardwired parts to it, that the flight or fight or whatever, that when there's a danger, your fear is supposed to be telling you why you should get away from it and in order to protect you. And this is 100% bullshit. Fear is never, ever protective, except in a sneaky way that it actually protects you from something that's in you that you don't want to look at. Fear protects you from guilt. So you could put it this way: if you were not guilty and you were really, really certain of your innocence, you wouldn't have any reason to be afraid. You would know of your own innocence, and you would know that because of your innocence, you don't deserve any punishment. And because of your innocence, you you are the truth, and any lies are going to be found out to be lies because of your innocence. There's kind of a dynamic that happens where as soon as you believe in your own guilt and you agree that you're guilty and ashamed and that you deserve to be put down and condemned, you yourself form a belief and an agreement that you should be punished. Especially when if you do something that you think is a sin, or you hurt someone, or you break something, or whatever, something that you think you did wrong, and you really believe that you did it and you had real consequences, and that because of this you get into guilt, and you think that the guilt is somehow atoning for the sin, or that you felt remorseful because you perceive that you didn't really want to do it, even though in truth everything you do is deliberate. Secret of salvation is that you do it, you choose consciously on purpose every single thing, and then you go into guilt to claim and pretend that you didn't choose it on purpose, and that you wish that you could take it back, even though you're not going to take it back. You want to keep the fact that you did sin intact, but you'll have this sort of a sob story of guilt about how I didn't mean to do that, and I didn't really want to do that, and sorry about that, when all along you actually intended to. This is difficult to admit to sometimes. So then you get into guilt, and then you actually start to agree and believe that you really did sin, and you really are guilty, and it's true of you that you're guilty. You just kind of accept it. And as soon as you accept that you are guilty, you won't defend yourself. You will start to allow others to confirm your guilt. you'll start to let yourself be attacked. You'll start to invite suffering because you think you deserve it. So you get into that guilt mindset, feeling ashamed. Somebody comes along and says, hey, you shouldn't have done that. You're so guilty. You're a bad person. You'll basically nod your head and agree with them, even if it feels painful, because you yourself have come to believe that you are a guilty thing. You're made of guilt. You've got guilt in you because of what you did. And so instead of saying, no, I'm not guilty, and I didn't really sin, and I'm still innocent in God's love, you'll instead keep the guilt and come to the conclusion that, yes, it's sort of like admitting to a crime, like, yes, I really did do it, and I do deserve to suffer. And so guilt demands that you be punished. And if you believe that you're guilty, regardless of anybody else or what anyone says or anyone else thinks, if you just in isolation by yourself, if you believe that you're guilty, you will conclude that you don't deserve forgiveness, and that therefore it wasn't just a mistake, it was a sin, and it's punishable. Sin demands punishment, and so then you yourself will form a belief that you deserve to suffer and be punished, regardless of whether anyone else agrees with you, even if there's a really forgiving person around you trying to tell you that you don't deserve punishment. You yourself form this belief because of the guilt. I don't deserve to be forgiven, therefore I deserve to be condemned. And that sets you up for the beginning of fear, because now you yourself are now becoming suicidal. You yourself are now beginning to hate yourself, condemn yourself, find yourself to be unworthy, won't allow yourself to be loved and forgiven. And so even if you were surrounded by loving people, you now are forming this kind of death wish where you think that you deserve to be punished and hated and hurt because you did do something terrible. And so you basically are deciding that you are going to hurt yourself, that you're going to allow hurt to happen to you. You're gonna become passive in agreeing to suffering and agreeing to that you should suffer and you should be hurt and you should be attacked. And this is the root of fear, in that because you're guilty, you think that you deserve to be punished. And so then you start to believe in your own self-punishment, that you yourself are now against yourself. You are now planning to attack yourself. You're scheming to, you're kind of like against yourself. Now you have self-loathing, and you're now your own enemy, and now you become your own accuser and your own prison guard and your own attacker, and the person who is going to punish you is yourself. And so now your mind is starting to see yourself as a victim and to see yourself as worthy of being attacked. And your perception is going to start broadcasting a desire for suffering, a choosing of wanting there to be punishment. You kind of like putting out a signal saying, please attack me, please hurt me, and please come along and punish me to prove to me why I'm deserving punishment because of my guilt. And that has a very significant effect, because it actually does orchestrate and invite and ask for other people and events to occur in the dream. In your dream that you're dreaming, you start to dream of suffering and ways of being attacked and punished and things going wrong and things being against you because you're against you. And unfortunately, because you are powerful and you are the dreamer of the dream, this is how you start to dream of worse nightmares, where it seems like your dream, the world in general, other people, events and stuff, now sort of transpiring against you, and they show up as enemies and attackers because you are transpiring against you. And so now you don't realize that you're doing this to yourself, and now you start seeing that other people are the thing that is against you, or they are the one who is attacking, or they have the power, they're choosing for you, they're causing you, they're willing against you. And each time that they will against you, you kind of don't question it. You don't question whether you deserve it in truth. You kind of you have a reaction. You react with fear and terror and upsets and various emotional responses that are all effects that you believe they are causing. But at the same time, you're kind of squirming because you yourself believe that you deserve attack and that you're not innocent. So it's kind of like deep down, you actually are agreeing with the people who seem to want to hurt you, and even though you don't want to admit that, and it's becoming unconscious to you, the only reason that a person gets upset is because they believe that there's truth in the accusations coming from others. If you didn't believe it was true and you were really certain that it's true, you would laugh in the face of it, and it would be so ridiculous to you that you wouldn't be able to take it seriously, and you would have no reaction to it at all. So when, like, say, two people get together and one of them accuses the other of something and the person gets really upset, the person is only getting upset because they agree with the person that is accusing them. There's something in the person that is guilt or a sin or a fear, a belief system of unworthiness that actually confirms that when someone comes along and reflects and mirrors to them, you are a guilty son of a bitch, you deserve to suffer, even though that induces reactions and despair and hurt and all this stuff comes up, the person gets upset because they get triggered, and they're triggered by their own inner beliefs that are in agreement with the attack. And so this is why it's so important to heal yourself and reverse your belief in your own sin and guilt, because that stuff gets triggered off when other people do things. And if you don't have guilt in you because you don't believe that you're guilty, other people's behaviors start to just go past you, and you start to recognize that it's got nothing to do with you, and whoever they seem to be targeting It's not yourself, because yourself is innocent and holy, and you've identified yourself as being not the guilty one. So when someone's pointing a finger and they're saying, "Oh, you're the fucker that did this and you're guilty," it doesn't even register in your being, because you've taken yourself off the hook and you don't agree with them, and so you don't have a reaction. It doesn't even seem to apply to you. You recognize that they're just talking about themselves. So you only become afraid because of your own self-attack, and you only become afraid because you think you're guilty, and then you create fear in order to hide your guilt. Fear protects you from your guilt. It covers it up and makes your guilt unconscious, blocks it out of your awareness. Because you've gone kind of past the state of thinking that you're guilty, and now you're starting to believe that you are going to punish yourself, and that starts to induce fear, because now you're threatening yourself. And the fear starts to become the dominant focus in your awareness, and it starts to shut out the guilt. And now you find yourself being afraid, and it now seems like there's causes outside of you that are causing the fear, when in fact that's just a projection. And now whenever you think that you are at the effect of the world, or the world is causing you, or somebody else is the cause of you, they can do something to you. When you're believing in that, that's what causes you to generate fear, because you've now got yourself as one part of mind. You've now got a split mind, and the other part of your mind that you've disowned has become an attacker of yourself. It is now threatening the rest of you, and that will generate fearful thoughts, and you'll get obsessive thoughts of fear and anxiety, and just kind of an insane state of anxiousness-driven thinking, and worries and doubts, and reading into things, and you kind of start hallucinating. Your perception kind of opens up, and you start feeling really exposed, and that other people have access to your being, because of this backwards perception, this belief that I'm not the one who's going to cause me to be harmed, it's everyone else. And then you become victimized, and your fear becomes justified by this perception that your own attack upon yourself seems to be outside of you. And so really it's not that other people are attacking you. It's not that there's threat and danger in somebody diagnosing you with a terrible disease. There's not threat and danger in wild animals trying to kill you. It's really that your mind is out there. Part of your mind has been projected outside you, and it is now turned against you, and it's trying to cause at you, and that induces fear and terror, because now you're in conflict, and you're having a war with yourself, and now you're hurting yourself. And so it's not really that you're afraid because of other people. You're not really afraid because of situations and the environment and foods and what's going to happen at work and who you're going to meet on the street and all these kind of like external dangers. That's all bullshit. None of that is the cause of fear. You are the cause of your fear, and you have to own it if you want to be free of it. Because only you are deciding that you have something to be afraid of, and it's yourself. It's your own self-attack, it's your own belief, your own denial of your innocence. your unwillingness to forgive yourself, your self-condemnation and your belief in sin, and all of these things are fake protests against God. Because God loves you. He finds you worthy. He knows that you're innocent forever. He knows that sin is impossible. He knows that you cannot hurt anything real. Nothing real can be threatened. And so the whole ego mindset and the whole state of suffering in all of its conditions and states, even including sickness and death, are all denial. They're all your attempt to claim that God is having an attitude towards you that he doesn't have. It's an attempt to say, yeah, God, you should stop loving me because I don't deserve it anymore. Just save your time and don't mind me. I'll just suffer. Or what I did is too bad. It's too severe. I've hurt people and I've done terrible things, and therefore you shouldn't love me or forgive me. I don't deserve it. Just pass me by and let me suffer. Let me have my guilt. Because I want to. And so really it's not that God is deciding that you should be punished. God is not deciding to condemn you or judge you or find you guilty or sinful. He just laughs at all that bullshit because you're making it up yourself. And so really you are your own worst enemy. You are the one who's choosing to decide to believe that you don't deserve love. You're the one who thinks that you need to suffer. You're the one who is punishing yourself. You're the one who's hurting yourself, and you're the one who's orchestrating events in the world to come along and attack you for you, so that you can continue to compound this attempted belief, this protest against reality, that you should suffer, that you're supposed to be suffering, that you're meant to be harmed and hurt and dead, when nothing real believes that. It's all self-attack. And this is the secret of salvation, that you're doing it to yourself, that if you would just forgive yourself and stop being your enemy and stop hating yourself and stop putting yourself down, stop finding yourself guilty, let yourself off the hook for everything that you ever did. None of it's important. Doesn't matter how severely you sinned and committed terrible crimes and bullshit in a dream. God still loves you. You are forgiven. And get some atonement, get some recognition of the truth that you cannot have really sinned. It's not possible. You cannot really be guilty. You don't have any real justification for being afraid because you are not really guilty. You don't have any guilt. All guilt is fake. All sin is fake. All fear is fake. There is no such thing as real fear or being really afraid. You can convince yourself that you really are, and you can believe in it, and you can try to make it real to you, and it can become very real seeming. You can really intensify it, but it's bullshit, and you're lying to yourself. So you got to take back your power by stopping believing and stopping perceiving that everyone else out there is the one who is causing your fear. They are not the cause of your fear. You are. You have control over whether you are afraid or not. If you don't choose to be afraid, you cannot be afraid. If you do choose to be afraid, you will be afraid. It's got nothing to do with other people. It's got nothing to do with the world or the body or sickness or anything happening external. It's an inside job. There are benefits that you're getting from being in fear. You're accusing other people of being responsible for you. You're disowning yourself. You're allowing other people to decide for you whether you're happy or sad. You're giving power to the world. You're being passive-aggressive, and you're trying to basically put all the responsibility for choosing your own suffering into the hands of other people, and they don't have that power, and it's not their responsibility, and they are not doing it. It's your mind attacking itself, and when you get into split-mindedness, which means you believe in your sin and guilt, and so you believe in separation, your mind becomes divided against itself, your will becomes divided against itself, and now you literally are starting to will against your will. You're going into unwillingness, and then this unwillingness eventually becomes this state of fear where you think, I'm so unwilling, I don't want this, I wish it wasn't happening, blah, 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 bullshit, blah, 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 bullshit. And it's all your fictional story about why you should be afraid, that you're making yourself afraid because you have it in for yourself, because you don't love yourself enough. Jesus says, those who are sick do not love themselves, because if they loved themselves, they would heal themselves. So that's quite a big responsibility, that every state of suffering you can get into is self-inflicted. You've got to get responsible. You have to own up to your power. I am not afraid, but all-powerful. I am not weak, but strong. I'm not an illusion, but a reality. I cannot see in darkness, but in light. These are all taking you from victimhood and putting you back into mastery and having power over the world. You're not supposed to be in a state of weakness or fear. When you're in fear, you are lying. When you're in fear, you're trying to pretend that something other than the fear is the cause of your fear. Something other than you is making you afraid and not safe. And it's not true. It's a deflection to try to protect the fear and keep it from being undone. So what about if you look at the fear and say, this fear is not causing anything. This fear is not a cause. It is not causing me to be upset. It is not being caused by anyone else. No one is making me afraid. No one is upsetting me. No one's causing me to be afraid. And therefore, this fear is not a cause of my suffering. This fear is, in fact, the effect of me believing that I'm guilty. Fear is not the cause of your problem. And so if you try tackling fear and going at the fear and trying to mangle with the fear and deal with fear, it kind of doesn't work, because the fear is actually not the starting point of your problem. The fear is hiding a previous step of your belief in your own guilt, and it has come from that guilt. It is your self-condemnation that is making you afraid. And so you've got to get past the illusion of the fear and look past and behind it. It is a block to awareness. It's blocking your awareness from the guilt that you feel about yourself. And it's hiding the truth. It's hiding the fact that before you even became afraid, you decided that you're a guilty sinner. And that is the deeper problem. That's what you got to get to, and that's where you got to heal. Even the guilt is not really the problem. You didn't have any guilt until you believed that you sinned. And so guilt does the same thing as fear. It starts blaming other things for being the reason why you're guilty, all to try to, as a decoy, to distract you from owning up to the fact that you have made up this guilt in order to defend against the sin, to pretend to disown it so that you'll look like you didn't want to sin. Oh, I'm so guilty, I'm sorry, I feel so guilty and remorseful. Bullshit. You don't. It's a fake layer of illusions that you use to cover up the fact that you deliberately sinned, you don't want to admit to, and you don't want to change, and you want to keep the sin, so you won't undo it. So instead of undoing the sin, you'll sort of go into a, yes, I secretly want this sin to stay, but I'm going to make out that I didn't choose it on purpose, and how shocked I am at how terrible it was, and I'm so sorry and guilty and unworthy now. And that guilt is supposed to be an atonement for the sin. It's supposed to be a compensation, and it's bullshit. It's a lie, and it's saving face, and it's ego. Behind the guilt, there is the belief that you're a sinner, that you really attacked something and made it hurt. And even the sin is a lie. Sin is not real. You did not sin in reality. This is just a dream. Behind the sin, there is causality, where you basically in heaven decided to try to shift around cause and effect. You wanted to be the cause of God. You wanted to make effects in God. You wanted to have an authority over him. And that is the root idea behind all of this belief in fake sin, and all the belief in fake guilt, and all the belief in fake fear, and all the fake suffering, and all the fake death. All comes from the logical consequence of, I really have changed cause and effect, and now I am God, and now God is my bitch, and whatever I say goes, blah, blah, blah. And then you set about denial upon denial. Sin is denial of life. Guilt is denial of sin. Fear is denial of guilt. Punishment is denial of fear. Death is denial of punishment. And the ego uses all these layers upon layers of denial, of disownership and irresponsibility, and not claiming power, and dismissing power and letting go of power, giving power away, to become so helpless and so disempowered in a state of fear that you don't think you have any power anymore. And then you think it really seems to make sense why I'm afraid. I'm afraid because everyone else has power over me. And they don't. It's your power that you don't want to own, and you've put it into the hands of everyone else, and you're letting everyone else dictate life for you so that you won't have to own up to being powerful. All states of sickness, even unto physical death, are physical expressions of the fear of awakening. So even death is an attempt to avoid and disown power, and to pretend that you don't have any, to give yourself away, and to not have any self left, any will to live, because you think that all the will has been is fully outside of you, doing it to you. You don't have any resistance left. You don't have any strength left to stop it. And so you just lay down and just suffer and die. And it all comes because of fear. It's all because of this choosing to believe that you deserve to be afraid. Choosing to believe that you should be afraid because you are guilty. Choosing to believe that you are guilty because you sinned. choosing to believe that you sinned because you reversed cause and effect and tried to attack God, believing that you even could do that. It's all your own beliefs. You cannot be afraid unless you attack yourself. Jesus says you cannot be hurt unless you hurt yourself. So you got to own responsibility for your power, own your life, own up to your own inner strength, own up to being Christ, own up to being cause of the world, own up to being not at the effect of the world. Take back your power and kick some ass. Because you are the ruler of the universe. Myself is ruler of the universe. Nothing happens that I don't want to happen. Whatever I say happens, happens. If you have fear, you have disowned yourself. If you have fear, you have given away all your power to everyone else to pretend that you don't have any because of your belief that you're a sinner. God does not agree with you. God knows that you are innocent and holy and that you cannot sin against his will. And so, therefore, you don't have any reason to be afraid. There is no reason to be afraid. There is no valid reason in the entire universe why you should be afraid. It is all fake and bullshit lies. Don't believe fear. Don't believe guilt. Don't believe sin. You don't have any reason to be afraid. It is not God's will that you suffer. You don't have any reason to be in anxiety. The only reason that you're there is because you've displaced your own power and your own self outside yourself, and now you see it as a powerful thing outside you trying to do something against your will because you are against your will. You have to become single-minded, single-willed, whole, and love yourself. Fear is the absence of love. So if you have love, it is impossible to be afraid. Fear is what it feels like when you're so lacking in love and safety and happiness and power that you feel that way. It's what it feels like not to love. When you are afraid, if you can get yourself to love, extend love, give love to other people, send it, radiate it, feel love, it shines away fear. It makes it disappear instantly. If you can get love in your heart, all the things that you were afraid of, that you were afraid that were going to happen, all the things that were going to go wrong in the future to punish you for your guilt, for the sin that you did in the past, if you're getting into that fearing, you are not fulfilling your function as love. You're supposed to be bringing love to the situation and loving every part of it. And because you're not doing that, you are afraid. I'm here only to be truly helpful. I'm here to represent He who sent me. I don't have to worry about what to say or what to do, knowing that He goes there with me. You bring the love, it protects you. Love is your protection. It's what makes you feel safe. You need to love yourself and forgive yourself so that you don't have any basis for fear, and then your anxiety and fear will disappear like it never existed. You deserve love. You are worthy of God's love. God finds you worthy. You deserve forgiveness. no matter what you did, no matter how serious, no matter who you hurt, no matter how guilty you thought you should be. It's not true. You deserve to be forgiven. You deserve to be let off the hook, forgiven and loved again. You deserve to be embraced by God and fully loved, forever and ever, as if nothing happened. There is nothing to fear because only love exists. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Only love exists, and therefore there's only justification for being unafraid. If you're in fear, you're not in love. If you're in fear, you need to get some love. Love is the cure for all of your fears and anxieties. You have to learn to love yourself by forgiving yourself and recognizing that you did not do in reality what you thought you did in a dream. God isn't holding it against you, and you don't deserve to suffer. You don't deserve to be attacked. You don't deserve to be victimized or hurt or hated. You are safe. You are safe because you are loved by God, and nothing real can be threatened. You are real. God loves you. Receive the love. Allow yourself to be loved. That's all you need to dissolve away all fears and anxieties, to make you powerful, and to end all victimhood. The secret of salvation is you're doing it to yourself. Stop hurting yourself. Stop hurting yourself. Forgive yourself and let yourself be loved. Let yourself be worthy of being loved. God finds you worthy. This is about the atonement, the recognition that you have not sinned, cannot sin, never did anything wrong, so you still must be perfectly innocent in God's eyes. You accept that this is the truth, that God loves you and never stopped, and that you deserve it because there's no other reason why not. There's no other belief that says otherwise, and therefore you can fully accept, I am still as God created me, I am loved, nothing has happened. Happy tears of relief and joy in receiving God's love that you weren't letting yourself receive all this time. Peace and love.